As the insider-exclusive investigative news team travels across America producing the Justice in America Network TV series, we invite you to join us as we uncover real stories about the issues that promote justice and fairness for injured people, safeguards victims' rights, and the opportunity to help guide the hands of justice, especially when people's lives have been destroyed, families ruined, dreams lost, or widespread societal change and reform are needed. These true stories about real, ordinary people, their real lives, always up close and personal, and always unfiltered stories of unimaginable pain, suffering, and great wrongs, but also of courage and faith and the dauntlessness of the human spirit. These stories are also about the trial lawyers who helped these ordinary people navigate a very complex legal system to get justice as they faced extreme life-altering adversities, and how the government and big business with their million-dollar PR campaigns are slowly eroding our rights to seek justice and making an end run around the civil justice system. Our TV stories show relief and vindication for shattered lives and seemingly lost souls. The compassion, warmth, love, and determination of the human spirit found within these shows are neither imagined nor contrived. They are truly personal crusades and telling journeys of what it means to seek justice in the American courtroom. In this insider-exclusive network TV special, Justice in America, the Truths and Myths of Tort Reform, we visit with John Fitch, founder of the Fitch Law Firm in Columbus, Ohio. As he takes us inside today's legal system, examining lawyers' strategies, clients' thoughts, and in vivid detail showing you the often heartbreaking stories of these clients, dramatically demonstrating what motivates trial lawyers to fight for their clients' causes. Some of these same trial lawyers have been in the crosshairs of attacks by so-called tort reform advocates for the past 30 years. These attacks are not new. Now, a lot of you have heard and read about tort reform, but really don't understand how or what it really means, or how it affects us negatively every time we walk into the courtroom. So in this special Network TV Insider exclusive documentary, Justice in America, the Truths and Myths of Tort Reform, we will show you how tort reform is making justice more and more difficult for the average American. And we're not going to do it by words or fancy language, but by inviting you along to meet our guests and their lawyers in small towns and big cities filmed across America, who've had the unfortunate bad luck to be severely injured or victimized by big businesses, the government, or law enforcement. These victims could be you or me one day, and if you are so unlucky, you will quickly find out that justice in America is a hard-won battle where very few companies and individuals do the right thing. And you need trial lawyers who wage a battle with their own financial resources to get their clients justice. But before we get started, just for the record, let's define what the heck tort reform means in simple language. Tort is a legal term describing the system of compensation used by the courts to assign remedies, awards, and damages for harm done by one party to another, be it to their person, property, or other protected interest. Tort law defines what constitutes a legal injury and establishes liability. It's the civil court's answer to criminal law. Tort reform, then, is the political term for the controversial issue of reducing tort litigation, awards, damages, and/or compensation. Now, tort reform isn't one single idea or law. Instead, it's a group of ideas and laws designed to change the way our civil justice system works. While each tort reform law is different, they all share one or more of the following goals: to make it more difficult for injured people to file a lawsuit, to make it more difficult for injured people to obtain a jury trial, and to put limits on the amount of money injured people receive in a lawsuit. Keep in mind that throughout history, our civil justice system has kept Americans safe by allowing them a fair chance to receive justice when they are injured by the negligence of others, even when it means taking on the most powerful corporations. When corporations and their CEOs act irresponsibly by cutting corners on safety, producing unsafe products, polluting our environment, or swindling their employees and shareholders, the last resort to hold them accountable is in our courts. The legal system provides justice to those injured by deliberate misconduct and deters future misconduct by holding wrongdoers accountable. Here's just a quick review of a few Justice in America Network TV show segments of these real case stories of ordinary people, their real lives, and their trial lawyers who've helped these ordinary folks navigate a very complex legal system to get justice as they faced extreme life-altering adversities. Real cases that promote justice and fairness for injured people, safeguards victims' rights and the opportunity to help guide the hands of justice, especially when people's lives have been destroyed, families ruined, dreams lost, or widespread societal change and reform are needed, and how the government and big business are slowly eroding our rights to seek justice, making an end run around the civil justice system and calling it tort reform. For many of the nearly 50,000 9/11 first responders, the wounds of the Twin Tower attacks are far from healing. These rescue workers continue to struggle with respiratory illness, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and many of them may be at increased risk for developing a number of cancers. Because they and their fellow rescue workers were picking through rubble littered with asbestos, mercury, crushed fluorescent light bulbs, and other known toxins, and they were outfitted with only their normal uniform to protect them from potential contaminants. When hundreds of victims and their families were left struggling with impending health problems and emotional instabilities after the World Trade Center attacks, the Uniformed Firefighters Association of Greater New York selected one law firm, Sullivan, Papain, Block, McGrath, and Canavo, their friends and trusted legal advisors for the past 20 years, to come to their rescue, because sometimes even first responders need to be saved.
I was promised a better life.
Far away from my home.
I used to have a family.
Now, I must pay for my family's debts.
I sleep with many men every day. They make me.
Kill. For a war.
Work many long hours.
Trapped.
Beaten.
Scared.
Locked in the dark.
With no way out.
I want to go home.
I want my
Freedom.
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 The last thing that we as Americans would remotely suspect is that the greatest engineering firm in the world, so named because they were able to build a Panama Canal when no one else could, the greatest engineering firm in the world caused the flooding of this city. Not Hurricane Katrina, the United States Army Corps of Engineers.
And because of one negligent moment, it has become a painful and needless tragedy.
The state of Louisiana's medical malpractice laws are full of traps, and how the healthcare and insurance industries are far more protected than anywhere else. In Sharon Boxey's case, you will see how her doctors malpositioned her head and neck during surgery that substantially reduced blood flow through the carotid arteries to her brain, causing massive brain damage, which went undetected during surgery and rendered her a total quadriplegic.
So far in 34 years, no one has come close to having a Supreme Court decision finding that the cap or the act was unconstitutional.
We are going to show right now a day in the life of Sharon Boxey and what these doctors did to her. And you're quite familiar with this video that we have on the screen right now. Tell us a little bit about her daily activities.
Well, her daily activities are markedly reduced. Her sister and her family have been incredibly supportive, caring for her and doing the physical therapy and the other steps that are necessary to keep her alive and functioning as well as she possibly could. But basically in the course of a day, because of her limitations, she can do virtually nothing other than watch TV, talk with people who come over, maybe read a little bit. But even read, I mean, she can't turn a page. She has no movement in her hands or arms or legs.
Don mentioned to me, Sharon, that one of the reasons that you have so much drive and fortitude is you want to show others that the laws in the state of Louisiana aren't the best laws in the world concerning medical malpractice cases, right?
That's correct.
On July 26, 2003, at approximately 3:45 in the afternoon, Christopher Allison and his family were driving back to Pocatello, Idaho, from their vacation in Washington. Suddenly and unexpectedly, their vehicle was struck by another driver from the rear, jackknifing their camper and overturning their Ford Expedition, crushing and killing Christopher and injuring the rest of the Allison family. Today, the Insider Exclusive will show you how the Allisons' lawyers, Robert Krause and Emily Rankin of the Spence Law Firm took on Ford Motor Company and successfully sued them for the defective product design of the door latch and component system and other defects, and got justice for the Allison family.
My name's Jeffrey Scott Hornoff, and I'm a police officer. I was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Every step of the judicial system failed me and my family. And if not for the guilt and remorse of the true killer, I'd still be in prison.
She died, I killed her.
Why would you not want to ensure that California stops putting innocent people in prison? It's a very good question.
I was locked up when I was 20 years old, just turned 20 years old. And I'm 42 now, so I've been in a little over 22 years.
It was hard for my father to explain to me. I got convicted of raping somebody, but Daddy didn't do it. So it's like, how you not do it, Daddy, if you've been in here for all these years now?
Everything in life is wonderful, and then one day, somebody comes up and tells a lie on you and you end up in jail. What's different is he knows fear doesn't exist.
When they told me rape, robbery, possession of instrument of crime, gun, conspiracy, all these, I'm like, oh my God, you know, just it's almost like 100 years in jail for something you didn't do, and I'm really scared.
I was in shock because I got found guilty.
I looked him right in the face, and I said, you and I both know I didn't kill anyone. And he couldn't look me in the eye.
He sentenced me to all that time, and I didn't know what to expect in prison. You know, I expected be beaten, be raped. I expected to die in prison.
The government has failed the exonerated.
It's finally over. It's been 19 years. What now? Go home.
Dr. William J. Irwin failed to comply with the appropriate standard of care for an OB/GYN in the year 2007. And as a result, Rebecca Gatti, a newborn baby, suffered severe brain damage which is lifelong and irreversible. Those brutally frank words were how the Louisiana Medical Review Board explained to Ryan and Susan Gatti, the parents of their new baby girl Rebecca, why Rebecca had suffered irreversible brain damage due to the incompetence of Dr. Irwin, and now will require round-the-clock care for the rest of her life with no chance whatsoever for improvement. Today, the Insider Exclusive will take you behind the headlines of this real-life couple, Ryan and Susan Gatti, who entrusted their child's health and welfare to this grossly incompetent doctor. The following is a TV commercial for American Family Insurance.
Since the dawn of time, people have needed people. The personal connection, a shoulder to lean on. That is our role. To deliver more than just a policy on a piece of paper. To deliver peace of mind. Because we are family. American family. And like family, we grow stronger each day with the constant promise to always be fair, helpful, and caring. Doing whatever we can to make things easier. Striving to keep our promises. This is what we do for our clients. We get to know them like family. Because that's who we are. American Family Insurance.
But today, the Insider Exclusive presents a true, really tragic story, one that American Family Insurance doesn't want you to know. One hot Missouri summer day, Galen Ritchie's sister, Brenda, called her insurance company, American Family, and her agent, Catherine Phillip Leitz, telling her that a 1,400-pound tree limb, nearly half the tree, had fallen on Brenda's house. She called 3 times that week, and on 3 separate occasions, American Family refused to pay to have this 1,400-pound limb removed. If you don't care about people, you couldn't do this job. Sounds real good, doesn't it? Only problem is, Anthem Blue Cross really doesn't mean what they say. Ask Bob Daringer, widow of Esther Daringer. 49-year-old Esther beat breast cancer until it metastasized to her brain. Ohio State University physician Dr. Herbert Newton, her physician, had successfully treated cancer like Esther's through intra-arterial chemotherapy. Her husband's health insurer, Anthem Blue Cross, paid for 3 of the 12 scheduled treatments. Bob and Esther first learned that the 4th treatment was being denied the day before it was given. The insurance company had approved the first 3 of the 12 treatments, but then refused further payment, declaring the procedure experimental. Cigarette smoking is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. It causes serious illness among an estimated 8.6 million persons. It costs $167 billion in annual health-related losses, and it kills approximately 438,000 people each year. Worldwide, smoking kills nearly 5 million people annually.
I'm honored to stand here today with dedicated colleagues from within the Department of Justice as well as beyond it to announce a historic settlement with Pfizer Incorporated In a combination civil and criminal settlement, Pfizer has agreed to pay $2.3 billion, the largest healthcare fraud settlement in the history of the Department of Justice.
You now know that exposure to asbestos products caused this.
Yes.
Not only in the Navy, but also working as a custodian at the school.
Yes.
You're on national TV now. What do you have to say to the manufacturers that created these products?
Well, they knew years ago, and they should have started much earlier in the process of eliminating the asbestos from all their products.
They chose not to, you know that.
They chose not to. Most of the major companies, some that were litigated against, filed bankruptcy and then turned around and regrouped, and they were doing the exact same thing.
They're going strong.
Using the same products.
Yeah, they have a total disregard for human life, don't they?
They do.
I like being a correctional officer, and I chose that field because I wanted to make a positive impact on inmates. I view my prognosis as good. I keep responding to treatment, and I was just talking to my sister yesterday because there's times where you get down and you think, oh, you know, you just want to give up.
Cannot operate with one hand.
Dr. Anthony Sterling is an orthopedic surgeon who can no longer take care of his patients. He's been disabled ever since 1998 when he had surgery to remove a bone spur pressing on his spinal cord. The surgery did not turn out well. The worst thing that could happen to a surgeon happened to Dr. Sterling. During the surgery, he suffered a terrible injury that rendered his left arm completely paralyzed, and it remains paralyzed to this day, trapped in an ugly brace. So the man who routinely performed about 500 surgeries a year and expected to continue helping patients for another 15 years can no longer enter an operating room.
Across the U.S., people are rising up against fracking for natural gas. A deadly threat to our homes and our lives is looming on the horizon. It is a new technique of gas oil extraction. It is known by various names. For example, the oil and gas industry says it isn't new. The industry says it's safe. But the industry is lying. The vertical gas wells are a completely different technology. The new technique of deep horizontal fracking destroys drinking water supplies, pollutes our air and our environments, and will continue to do so for possibly hundreds of years as the well casings inevitably fail and disposal sites inevitably leak. In this insider-exclusive investigative TV series new documentary, Fracking, Dangerous Contamination, Bob and Lisa Parr's story, our news team found that in any area where fracking operations have happened, the local people have been outraged by the catastrophic damage to land, water supplies, air quality, animal and human health. Local economies have been destroyed, property values have fallen drastically, up to 90%. And one of those areas is in Wise County, Texas, where the Barnett Shale is located. This is where we begin our story with Bob and Lisa Parr at their ranch and with their lawyer, Brad Gildy of the Gildy Law Firm.
It into the stands, leaving only enough time, 3 seconds, for Clay Rush to possibly kick the game winner. Rush has made field goals of 20 and 26 yards, missed from 41. This one will be from 20 yards to win the Arena Bowl.
When I think about football when I was playing, I like the challenges that it present itself. You had to be physically fit, you had to be mentally fit. What's unique about arena football, I miss the fans. It's a close-knit group. We consider us as a family. I've had over 30 procedures done with the head and neck. I've been on 90 different medications. I don't know what it's like not to have a headache.
Another question. You were here in July, and you said that you were you commended Dodd-Frank for providing a blueprint to get rid of too big to fail. We've now understood this problem for nearly 5 years. So when are we going to get rid of too big to fail?
Well, some of the, as we've been discussing, some of these rules take time to develop. The Orderly Liquidation Authority, I think we made a lot of progress on that. We've got the living wills. I think we're moving in the right direction. If additional steps are needed, then Congress obviously can discuss those, but we do have a plan, and I think it's moving in the right direction.
Any idea about when we're going to arrive in the right direction?
It's going to take, it's not a 0-1 kind of thing. It's over time.
The concern that you have raised is one that I frankly share. And I'm not talking about HSBC now, because that maybe that not be appropriate. But I am concerned that the size of some of these institutions becomes so large that it does become difficult for us to prosecute them when we are hit with indications that if you do prosecute, if you do bring a criminal charge, it will have a negative impact on the national economy, perhaps even the world economy. And I think that is a function of the fact that some of these institutions have become too large.
Tell me a little bit about the last few times you've taken the biggest financial institutions on Wall Street all the way to a trial. Anybody? I appreciate that you say you don't have to bring them to trial. My question is, when did you bring them to trial?
we have not had to do it as a practical matter to achieve our supervisory goals.
Can you identify when you last took the Wall Street banks to trial?
I will have to get back to you with the specific information.
These are just a few of the real Americans who have dealt with our legal system that is gradually eroding in favor of big business and the government because of tort reform legislation. And this is why we all need to protect a legal system that is designed to protect us, and not one that protects corporate business or the government over the common everyday American.
John Fitch, our featured lawyer, has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Ohio. His goal is not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure that everyone is treated with equal respect and dignity as guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. He has seen many innocent and hardworking people become victims, and because of that, he is driven to fight for people who have been harmed by the willful or negligent actions of others. He has built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. His amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Columbus, Ohio. It's my great pleasure to introduce John Fitch to the show. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you.
Tell our audience a little bit about what your law firm, type of law you practice.
So our primary office is in Columbus, Ohio. We do personal injury work. That includes a small part of our practice includes representing victims of sexual abuse, particularly children.
In this state, there is tort reform laws that were enacted a number of years ago. Tell our audience a little bit about what tort reform means.
The so-called tort reform has been a big push by the insurance industry, big business. The Chamber of Commerce is heavily involved. And in the United States, I would say a majority of states have the so-called tort reform for medical malpractice, but a much smaller number, maybe 10 states, possibly 12, apply it to all other types of accidents. So tort reform in Ohio means that you're limited in terms of what you can recover for the so-called pain and suffering. That's a piece of tort reform. So here we have caps on the so-called pain and suffering of $250,000. It's a bit complicated, but there is a way to get up to $350,000 for the individual person.
Does that increase at all over the years?
It does not increase.
Because I know in some states they've adjusted it. It does go up.
There is an overall cap of $500,000, meaning that a family member, perhaps, even though not injured, could get some money in addition to the victim.
Let's dispel some of the myths about why we have tort reform. We understand the insurance companies who ultimately are the pocketbooks for all businesses when it comes to paying out some of these verdicts. They're the ones that pushed this in to begin with. There is a myth out there that America is suffering from litigation explosion of personal injury lawsuits. Is that true?
Certainly jurors here, where I practice in Ohio, actually tend to be quite conservative. And then in Ohio, and probably in every state, the jury isn't free just to award any number they want without any checks and balances. So the trial judge and then the Court of Appeals can both look at that verdict and analyze it and the basis for it and have the power to reduce it. That is pre-tort reform. That was always the law, that we had checks and balances in our system.
So it's totally untrue that lawyers file frivolous lawsuits to get jackpot justice for their clients, right?
I don't believe that. Insurance companies are pretty sophisticated. Big self-insurers are pretty sophisticated in terms of defending cases. It's not a cheap process. It's actually quite expensive. So it's rather foolish to go out and file a so-called frivolous lawsuit. And frankly, in my experience, tort reform doesn't do anything to deter the filing of the so-called frivolous lawsuit anyway.
Yeah, frivolous lawsuits are akin to ridiculous lawsuits. We've seen them in the newspaper where somebody sues a cleaners because they ruined their pants for $50 million. But what happens with all of these frivolous, ridiculous lawsuits? They get dismissed, don't they?
If it's truly frivolous, I would say in general, they get dismissed. For those few, I think that a lawyer wants to take to a jury, in practical terms, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money or your client's money.
And you're wasting the court's time too.
Pre-tort reform, before this law was passed, the judge, once again, always had the ability, if the case was truly frivolous, to issue sanctions. That was always the law. So, in my view, this allegation that this is all about deterring frivolous lawsuits never had any merit.
In the great state of California, where I'm from, we have caps too, and it is a blue state. And I'm talking specifically about medical malpractice cases and non-economic or pain and suffering caps of $250,000, which has been the law for the last 45 years. It was passed in 1975. One of the unintended consequences, and you had brought this up earlier, is that people who do not have an economic value to their life, they're unemployed, they're retired, their children, the maximum they can recover is $250,000 if they win the case. The unfortunate thing is there's not too many lawyers will take on these cases because it costs money to put on a case, correct? So the court system isn't available to them to pursue their case because they can't find a lawyer. That's one of the unintended consequences, isn't it?
It is definitely one of the consequences, whether or not it's unintended. Yeah. I think, may be open to some debate. But yeah, sure, you're correct on that. In the case of medical malpractice, it's easy to spend $100,000 just in expenses, not legal fees, but experts and court reporters, etc. So it's just not viable under those circumstances to bring the case.
How do we change the laws in the state of Ohio to make them fairer to people who actually have real injuries, whether they're physical or psychological, mental? How do we do that? The voters have to change it, don't they?
It would have to come through the legislature. Of course, the legislature is responsible for the law that we have. It was passed on a completely partisan basis. My recollection is in both the House and the Senate, all Republicans voting for and all Democrats voting against. So I think it would probably have to start in the legislature. But in Ohio, currently, both houses, of course, are dominated by Republicans, governor, all of our state offices, and it tends to be a partisan issue, unfortunately. So personally, I'm not optimistic in this state that anything is going to change.
In other cases that you've handled, how have you seen tort reform affect the outcomes of the cases, like personal injury cases?
We talked about the fact that a part of our work is sexual abuse. That is a form of personal injury case. So I tried a case in Cleveland in November of a woman who was now 26, but she was repeatedly raped or otherwise abused when she was 11 and 12 years old. And a portion of that award, which was post-tort reform, went from $20 million to $250,000, even though she was raped or otherwise abused some 20 times. So that's one pretty stark example of the impact we see here in the state of Ohio by tort reform, protecting a man who has drugged and raped not only my client, but other little girls in the basement of his home.
What message does this send manufacturers, insurance companies, and those that tort reform laws protect them, and giving them a cap in essence? They know that if they do something wrong, they're only going to have to pay this sort of amount of money, a limited amount of money.
That's correct. By law, in most circumstances, the victim is going to be limited to $250,000, or again in Ohio up to $350,000, depending upon the amount of economic loss that the victim suffers. So when you have that kind of cap, and especially when you don't have the economic loss, given the expense and the time of litigation, it can be a pretty powerful deterrent.
The reason we're doing this special is because we have seen many examples all around the country where tort reform has not given justice to the people that have been injured by manufacturers, by other individuals, etc., because the amount of damages are limited. That is not justice at all. Justice is where a jury of one's peers say, hey, they evaluate the case and they say this person has been injured, award them money. And the reason we do these shows is to educate voters, because when you try a case, you can't tell the jury about tort reform, even though these laws, like in California, have been on the books for 45 years. There's millions of people who don't know there's a cap on non-economic damages. That's our job, to get this message out.
And it's not just about money, or it's not just about an individual. When you undermine the ability of the individual to hold, let's say, a big corporation accountable, it's really a deterrent to accountability, if you will. So we've talked about sexual abuse as one example. If we can't do our job as lawyers in uncovering this stuff, and frankly, it's difficult work, but if we can't do our job and expose it and hold people accountable, then it's my view that more of this is going to occur. We have the example of Jeffrey Epstein. The civil lawyers in that case did a great job in helping expose all of this. So it's not just about the individual. It's protecting others as well that are in similar circumstances and bringing accountability.
It sounds like, and you've clearly demonstrated this in your cases in all the years you've been a lawyer, that you have a definite commitment to get justice for those who can't do it for themselves, right?
That's true, and I feel particularly strongly about these children. I don't understand why we have laws that would protect someone who actually abuses a child or enables that abuse. I'll never accept it. I don't understand it. Frankly, I think it's immoral.
Well, I want to thank you for your perseverance, for your dedication to helping people and being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.